Hi, my name is Megan, and this is Everything Lit. And today I am starting a vlog. So I kind of just randomly have seen that I'm reading like 3 vampire books in a row. Yeah, you know, we love vampires. I just finished My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine, I think. I'll put it on the screen somewhere, and I'll talk about that more later. So I just finished that. It was cute, it was fun, it was vampire-y. I think I'm going to talk about vampires overall and comparisons toward the end of the video, but now I'm reading Dracula and Vampires of El Norte, and I thought, why not just make a cute little vampire vlog? So that's what we're doing. Isn't that right, bud? Now he's quiet. What's up? We're back to me vlogging in my pajamas. So my intro earlier was a little rushed. Let's actually talk. Oh my gosh, Vino is so cute. Look at this boy. Are you the cutest little bean? Oh no, he's mad that I'm showing him. So let's talk about the actual books on this TBR in this vlog. So I'm listening to Dracula on audio. I am about 10% of the way into that. I am reading Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I am like 3 pages into this, so literally just started it. And then I was thinking I would read the short stories in Vampires Never Get Old, Tales with Fresh Bite. So I have my hot pink bookmark to match, and figure every day I'll just read 1 or 2 short stories out of that until we're done. Let's talk about Dracula. There was a time, I think it was maybe last year, maybe the year before, where there were just a lot of posts on Tumblr going around about Dracula and like baby girlifying Jonathan Harkness, and it was really funny, and I just was like, oh, I should read Dracula. Thought I owned it, guess I don't, but it's a classic. So the library has the audiobook, and I'm really enjoying the experience. I think the reader is really good, and I don't think I lose anything by listening to it, especially some of the, you know, classics tend to have some pretty dry descriptions sometimes. They're like, and it was to the southwest of the continent, and the whole history of this country is going to be included in this chapter, and I'm just like, why? But when someone's reading it to me, I'm kind of like, okay, go off. Yeah, tell me about the history of this place. So that's really nice. And I think the voice for Dracula is like not over the top, but it does give that like classic vampire Dracula accent, the Transylvanian, like, I want to suck your blood, but like good, you know? So I'm really liking that audiobook. I don't really know what's in store. Like, we know the story of Dracula in terms of like, he's a vampire, but like, do we actually know the story of Dracula? Do you know what happens in the book? For me, the answer is no. And I think part of that is because I've never really seen like a true Dracula adaptation. I'm not like a horror girly. I'm not like a classic films girly, so I haven't watched a Dracula movie. Like, I've watched maybe like postmodern Dracula movies. Like I watched that recent Nick Cage movie where it's kind of a play on the original Dracula, and I'll put the poster on the screen because I cannot for the life of me think of this movie. Cannot think of the name. I shouldn't say I really liked it. I was a little too violent for me. Like, whoa. I had my eyes covered for some of the scenes, but overall, like, it was funny and good, and I liked it. For me, vampire stories do straddle a line of like too violent, too gory. So that's also another reason why I've kind of strayed away and not watched a ton of like vampire movies. Even though Interview with a Vampire, like, there's that one scene in the like Tom Cruise Brad Pitt version where like, and it's pretty brutal. I did cover my eyes the first couple times, and then I just like, I've seen that movie so many times at this point, I'm like, oh yeah, this is really violent, I forgot. So Dracula is a good time, and I'm gonna read for a little bit. I'm gonna read this, and I think I will start on, oh, my bookmark fell out. I'll start on one of these stories today. Look at this hot pink. Doesn't it just absolutely match the vibes? Love it. The sweetest boy. I don't remember the last time I updated you. So let's talk about the books I'm reading. It has gotten cold here, which is very exciting. I have a blanket on. Vino has curled up with me. When it's too hot, I have to have the fan on, and Vino does not like the fan. So I watched Twilight tonight. That was very fun. I haven't watched it in a while. And like, what an iconic movie. I absolutely love, like, unironically, I love the prom scene at the end. I think it's beautiful in that gazebo with all the fairy lights, and like their conversation just peak, like perfect adaptation, right? That scene specifically. The rest of it, still pretty great. On my very first computer, a photo of their faces in that scene, like the profile shot, was my background on my first computer in like 2008. So we stand. I'm listening to Dracula still. I'm about 30% of the way in, and I didn't realize the whole thing is just like letters between different people. Sometimes that's a little hard for me to follow, especially an audiobook version. I've had to like go back a couple seconds and be like, okay, wait, who's writing this letter? The movie that I was talking about in one of the last clips is Renfield, which I could not think of the title of, and I didn't realize he was like an actual character in the original Dracula. So that's fun, giving new context to things I've already seen. Pop culture really like is, I don't know, Dracula is so steeped in our pop culture that even if you haven't read the original story, you will know pieces of it. And I realized that the new movie, The Last Sailing of the Demeter or whatever, is also like from Dracula. So that's really interesting, and now I'm interested in watching that movie, but maybe with a friend, or just like, I don't know. I'm not a scary movie person. I'm not a gory movie person. So if it's about like bloodshed rather than like spooky, then I don't think I'll like it. But I am liking Dracula so far. I don't really know where it's going. I still feel like I have 10 hours left in the audiobook, and I don't like what's gonna happen. Yeah, it's crazy the amount of spin-offs and adaptations for the characters from Dracula, because we've just been introduced to Van Helsing. I'm not much further in Vampires of El Norte. I think I'm gonna read that slowly because I kind of messed up. Like, sidebar, I'm gonna be filming another vlog kind of alongside this because I accidentally started too many books. So there's a poll to vote for my 100th book of the year, but I accidentally kind of started too many. So it will be my 100th book because I'm gonna finish it and make sure it's my 100th book. But I'm reading 3 books right now, and one would be 98, one would be 99, and one could be 100. But so I think I'm gonna wait, and Vampires of El Norte will be 101. So I'm reading that really slowly. I don't know what my 100th book of the year is gonna be still, because the poll, we have 2 books that are tied, and I'm gonna post my October TBR soon and link it, and hopefully people who watch that will vote. I don't know. I'm just hoping that the tie gets broken, because otherwise, like, what am I gonna do, flip a coin? Maybe. And then I want to talk about Vampires Never Get Old, because I am so fascinated by these short stories, and I have been annotating this book, or at least like writing my thoughts on each story in pencil because I'm not a monster. But let's talk through them. So the first story is called 7 Nights for Dying by Tessa Gratton, and I gave this one 3 stars. It is about a girl kind of making the decision to become a vampire because it takes 7 nights to change, and she kind of has a moment where she could turn back, and it's about grief. Her mother has died recently, and I actually didn't really understand the character motivation in this one. I think it needed to be longer, or I don't know, clearer, because I suffered a loss recently, and I felt like I understood vampires for the first time and how awful it would be to live while every single one of your loved ones dies over and over. And anytime you get close to someone, you're going to lose them. Can't imagine. So that was a weird one for me. The next story I gave 5 stars. It was also about grief, but it was a less of a seasoned grief. Like in the previous story, the girl's mother had been dead for a little while, and in this one the boy finds out his mother died, like in the story. And I gave this one 5 stars actually because it had queerness, and that's not why I gave it 5 stars, but it had an undertone of queerness. The atmosphere was amazing. There's a connection to like music, and you can like summon these kinds of vampires. It was also a little twisty, and that was by Rebecca Roanhorse, and I really liked it. And I think for short stories, I'm looking for short stories on the longer end, because if they're too short, like you have to be really good to make it count. And then the third story was by my girl Julie Murphy. It was called Senior Year Sucks, and honestly it might be the order in which these are done, because the first 2 were like heavy hitters about grief, they're dark, and this one was just like a light little, it's called Senior Year Sucks, and it's about a vampire slayer who meets a vampire on the bus home from cheerleading. And I felt like it was just the first chapter of a novel. I wanted more of it. It was just so much lighter than the other 2 that it felt out of place. There was good tension between the vampire and the slayer, but I wanted more of the characters. And then it takes place in Texas, and it had a lot of stuff about the Sweetwater Rattlesnake Roundup, and talked about rattlesnakes and people touching rattlesnakes or dealing with rattlesnakes, and like this festival. Like, were they a metaphor? Is the Rattlesnake Roundup a metaphor for danger? I just didn't understand the why it was included. Like, what did it add to the story other than I guess maybe some setting? The next one was called The Boy and the Bell by Heidi Heilig. I really liked this one. I gave it 4 stars. I liked all the pieces of it. Like, there's a trans boy. He's a resurrectionist, which means he takes dead bodies and sells them to universities for science. Wants to be a doctor. And the atmosphere was creepy. But for some reason, this story really struggled to hold my attention. Like, I just kept getting distracted, didn't want to read it, didn't care. Like, I guess I didn't know where it was going or what to expect. And that's kind of why. Like, it wasn't like I was trying to figure out a romance. It wasn't like I was trying to figure out a murder mystery. Like, there was kind of nothing to keep me going other than the character. And I was like interested, but not compelled, you know? So I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 because I really liked the ending. And then the next one, the most recent one that I just finished, is called A Guidebook for the Newly Sired Dead Sea Vampire by Samira Ahmed. And honestly, this makes me want to read a novel by Samira Ahmed because it was so good. I gave it 5 stars. It's funny, it's clever, it was thoughtful, it had a good voice, it talked about colonialism and colonizers, and like, it was funny, and there was really good world building, and just, it was great. I loved it. And it's told in a like we and you like narrative. It's not, it was very broad but also felt specific. Like, it was just good. It was just absolutely fantastic. 5 out of 5 stars. So I'm about 105 pages into this short story collection. I've got 150 pages left. I would like to finish it tomorrow and then hopefully finish Dracula Monday because it is the weekend of the 6th of October. I have 4 days left on my Dracula hold at the library. So I need to finish it in the next 4 days at least, hopefully before. Because I have 4 other audiobooks out that return in the next, like, they all return in the next, like, 15 days. vampire vlog. What other vampire things should I do? Drink blood? I might watch Interview with the Vampire, the OG with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. Definitely am gonna watch the next installment in Twilight, New Moon, because I love those movies. And when I watch one, it's like this weird, I am just compelled to watch the entire series. You can't watch just one, you have to watch them all. I was literally so obsessed with them at one point that I would like watch each one and then watch them again. I had this weird thing in grad school where I just like watched movies on repeat while I like graded papers and studied and wrote, and like I watched X-Men Days of Future Past twice in one night because I just like, I had stuff to do and I was like, you know what, let's just put it on again. So that's how I deal with stress, I guess, and menial tasks. Just put on the same movie over and over again. Anyway, that's my check-in. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I am out and about today, going to Torrid because Torrid Cash is happening, and maybe stopping by Bath and Body Works because why not? They're right next to each other, which is my personal weakness. Just wanted to film a quick update on the Vampires of El Norte. I haven't talked about this much, but I am loving it so far. I think I'm 90 pages in, and Isabel Cañas, her grasp on tension is phenomenal. Like, this book starts off with a bang. These two best friends, Nina and Nestor, are attacked by a vampire. And then it goes from there. And just the tension. Oh my gosh. And I just stayed up later than I planned because I couldn't stop reading until like a little bit of the tension broke, but like not all of it. And I don't want to spoil anything because I want people to have this experience of like the tension. Maybe knowing what is happening wouldn't break the tension. Like, the tension is going to be the same whether you know or you don't know what the plot is, but I'm not going to spoil it. But the tension is good, and I cannot wait for this romance to kick off. Like, we've already got like sprinklings of it. I think that the relationship between Nina and Nestor is already really well built, and like how close they were as children, just incredible. And I am now 50% of the way through Dracula, and it's getting a little long. Like, things are happening, like stuff with Lucy is kicking off, and vampire transformations, and Van Helsing is there. And maybe it's because it's an audiobook, and because audiobooks take me longer, sometimes they start to wear on me, whereas if I was reading the physical book, it wouldn't feel as slow. And my audiobook is due Wednesday. It is Sunday evening, 2.5 days to listen to like 7 hours worth of audio. I think I can do it. I think it'll be fine. But I'm starting to get a little nervous that I'm not going to read as many books as I want to for October, because it is now the 8th. It is the end of the 8th. It's basically the 9th. And I have finished like 2 books in 9 days. I'm reading 3 books at the same time, but I've only finished 2. I gotta pick up my game. Oh my gosh, I'm in a new location. I've got a sea pancake that I bought on Instagram because they got me. So here I have a little mug from Valencia, and in it is pumpkin spice hot chocolate. And it's pretty good. It's just like pumpkin spice, you know? I feel like at Starbucks they mix it with mocha sometimes too. I finished Dracula today, and it was really good, very atmospheric, very scary. There was one part toward the middle where they're talking about how Mina is like such a good woman, such an intelligent woman. We must spare her feelings. We can't tell her any more about this affair that like they wouldn't have figured out without her. which they all admit that she is like the person who figured it out, but they're still like, but her soul, but her sweet female disposition can't take it. And I'm like, my guys. And then she starts becoming like wan. She starts becoming like pale and tired and sleeping a lot, and no one questions it. And I'm like, are we that dumb? I mean, probably, but like, really? So that was fun. My audiobook at the library had to return by like 1:30 today. So like first thing this morning on the way to the dentist, I'm like listening to Dracula, trying to finish the last half an hour. But I did it, and it was good. I am giving it 5 stars. It's a classic for a reason. And this is one of the things that makes me miss college, because being able to then go to a class and discuss the ideas in it and like the interpretation of gender and gender roles and morality and like the foreigner in England and all these really smart things. Like, I just want to go read a bunch of essays about Dracula now, and I'm not going to spend my time to do that, you know? Like, I'm busy, I'm tired, I have to go to work. I'm not going to go search out essays on Dracula, but actually I might. We'll see. Stay tuned. I have so many books on vampires to read this month that I might just like make this vlog really long and talk about a bunch of different things. I was trying to think of like vampire activities, but like, I can't fly, I can't turn into a bat, I don't want to suck anyone's blood, so like, what can I do? I'm gonna watch TV is what. So I have 2 more short stories in Vampires Never Get Old, and the last one is called First Kill by Miss V.E. Schwab, who I'm on a journey with this year, and I want to watch the Netflix adaptation. Changing the angle because my arm got tired. Let me update you on the stories I have read in here. So I think the last time I spoke to you, I hadn't finished the short story Vampires Never Say Die by the editors of the collection, Zoraida Cordova and Natalie C. Parker, and I gave it 4 stars. I liked the world building and the relationship, but it has to do with like Instagram and being influencers, but also like the vampire influence kind of idea, and I don't think that part really came through. I don't think the theme or the idea that they were trying to play with, like, I don't think that came through in the story. It came through in the little, you know, essay or like paragraph that they wrote after the story. And then Bestiary by Laura Ruby, I also gave 4 stars. A lot of this collection is 4 stars, so I feel like, without having finished it yet, I feel like it's gonna be a 4-star collection, which is nice. I'm not usually a short story girl. Bestiary was really weird and a weird take on a vampire, but I really liked it. I really like Laura Ruby's writing. I have one of her books on my shelf that I still need to get to, and maybe has just been bumped up a little ways. But the connection with animals in this story and our main character, her kind of like anger and her like I don't give a heck attitude, it was cool. And based on my reading of Dracula, the OG Dracula could turn it into several animals apparently. Mirrors, Windows, and Selfies by Mark Oshiro. I didn't love this one. I gave it 3 stars in the moment, but I could definitely bump it down to a 2. There was lots of tension that I felt like led to nothing. The romance was kind of sudden, and the like good thing or the novel thing novel because it's a short story about this story is like the way it's told and the interaction with the internet, because it's written as like blog entry posts and you get a couple of the like comments on it. It's trying to be about like finding your tribe and finding your people, and on the internet you can find your people, but I don't love that things weren't explained clearly, left in this gray space at the end where we don't really know what's true or what happened. Like, what it is the world building. I think the world building was mid and I didn't fully get it. And then I am on The House of Black Sapphires, so I need to finish this short story, But something about Danielle Clayton's writing, it's really lovely. Her writing is lovely. I think she's really good at description, but I just think that things don't always lead anywhere. And then I have the V.E. Schwab one, and I'm on like page 110 of Vampires of El Norte, and I am loving it. The tension between these two characters, the adventure, the like drama, like people are falling ill and going into kind of comas that they call susto, and vampires. So very excited to keep reading about vampires. I love vampires so much, and I forget how much I love reading about vampires, because I feel like there was a time because of Twilight where vampires were like cringy, and it's like, oh, you like vampires? Like, yes, actually I do. I like all of them. I like Anne Rice and her classic vampires. I like Dracula and the OG vampires. I do like Twilight and the sparkling vampires, and I like the sexy vampires, and I like the queer vampires, and I just love all vampires. They don't need my love. They're the undead. They would kill me, but I love them. So that's the update. Low-key, I feel like this vlog is gonna be 800 years long. I did finish this last night, book number 99. So it is October 12th. It's a Thursday. I'm gonna probably like pause this vlog for a bit and come back to you after I've read my 100th book and done my 100th book vlog. But let's talk about Vampires Never Get Old. I gave The House of Black Sapphires 3 stars. This is by Danielle Clayton, and I don't think I like Danielle Clayton's writing. I read her like Everlasting Rose series or whatever when it first came out, and I already unhauled both of those books because the bells, yeah. I think her writing is really beautiful. I think her world building is really interesting. I think her characters, and particularly I think plotting, is her weak point, because the pacing is not great, and the plot sometimes doesn't hang together, or just plot and pacing struggle. And in this short story, that is how I felt. There was not enough time for everything to be developed, and I wrote in my notes, bold to have so many characters in such a short story, because for The House of Black Sapphires, we are following a family of eternal women. They're not vampires, but they do live forever and drink blood. They're like the offspring of white vampires and enslaved women. So like there was interesting world building happening, and there are all these magical creatures, and they go to this like ball where there are a bunch of magical creatures, and there are like barons which can take people to like drag people to hell, like take their lives. I don't know, it was really interesting, and the writing was beautiful. It was also very romance heavy, and I was like, like, you can live forever and you're interested in boys? Come on. So like it was good, but it wasn't that good. The final story, First Kill by Miss Victoria V.E. Schwab. I don't know how I feel about this story. I'm interested in the TV show. I didn't realize it like took place in high school. We have these two girls who are interested in each other, and one is a vampire, and she, hasn't had her first kill yet. She's eating these like blood tablets or whatever to satisfy her thirst, but there's a lot of like, your first time is important, your first kill is important, those kind of parallels, which was interesting. I think it could have been taken further, that parallel. And I also liked how both girls' lives were very vivid and well done. You get a sense of their family life and what they like. But I gave this 4 stars. I'm having trouble explaining why I gave it 4 stars to myself. Like, I liked it. I liked the way it was written, because we get like Friday and Saturday from one girl's point of view, and then we get Friday and Saturday from the other girl's point of view. I think a little bit of professional jealousy may be coming through because V.E. Schwab, I follow her on Instagram. I really admire her career and the different genres that she has been able to write in and the different kinds of stories she is telling. She's on a book tour right now, and I'm just like, this is the dream. Like, that is the dream, to just like be able to tour the US and talk and like be paid to visit these like bookstores and universities and sign books and meet people who've read your books. Like, it's just I'm so happy that she's living that dream, but I want to be living that dream. So I gave First Kill 4 stars, and it might be professional jealousy. Okay, an update on Vampires of El Norte. I am 211 pages in. Something wild just happened, something very exciting. And I have been reading this for like a week and a half at this point because I have to finish my 100th book first. So I'm only reading like 10 minutes of this a day, and I just want to finish it. I want to marathon the end. Like, things are happening. It's getting crazy. And I just want to sit and read it and finish it. I think I have like 100 something pages left. And the tension in this like romance is killing me. I want them to like talk it out, but they're kind of talking it out in between crazy stuff happening. I am having a great time with this. I think that Isabel Cañas is going to be a new, I don't want to say favorite author, but like, I'm going to buy every book that she comes out with, and I hope that they kind of stay in this spooky genre. It'll be my like yearly October read. Really look like I'm in a tunnel at this angle. Another update to the vampire vlog. Haven't watched any movies lately, but I did start Certain Dark Things by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I'm listening to this on audio, so I just sat down. This is a neo-noir vampire novel. It's set in a futuristic Mexico City, and we've got a couple different characters we're following. So we're following Domingo, who is a garbage collecting street kid, and he kind of gets taken in by this vampire. He thinks she's gorgeous, thinks she's beautiful, and he wants to get to know her, maybe wants to sleep with her. Her name is Adele, and she is on the run from something. Her family is dead, and she drinks from Domingo, and then he's kind of infatuated. They like start hanging out a little more, and then we're following, I think, a vampire hunter slash policewoman, and also another gang of vampires who I think are looking for Adele and want to kill her. But what I'm finding really interesting is, I just read Dracula, right? It's part of this vlog. I enjoyed the heck out of it. This has a lot of references. The world building in this is so good, and so it seems effortless, but they call a certain type of like human familiar a Renfield, and that's like they make like a blood pact with this person, and it's kind of their servant. They are also using so I'm listening to the audiobook. Some of the words I can't really pronounce, and I'm kind of glad I'm listening to the audiobook because Lapalahuani, like in my brain that's like Talapalala. So like, I'm glad I'm listening to the audiobook. As someone who went through like an Aztec and Mayan ancient civilizations phase, the fact that this talks about Aztec culture and blood sacrifices and like vampires and Aztecs, how the Aztecs could have been vampires, but the history has been lost, so like they don't know, but the emphasis on blood and sacrifice had come to exposure from vampires, or whether vampires had gravitated toward this tribe because it meshed with the way that the vampires worked, just that commingling of Aztecs and vampires, because Aztecs famously, supposedly, offered blood sacrifices to the gods, sacrificed people. And then there was a moment where this particular type of vampire drinks from the young, and she was like, oh, I'm no Lucy Westenra. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're making another reference to Dracula that I understand, because in Dracula, Lucy drinks from children. like exclusively. And whether she could drink from other people, I don't really know. But in the book, she kills like a child. I am really enjoying the audiobook for this. I think it's really great for getting the accents and giving a better understanding of the words that are pronounced in here. 60 pages in, 30% of the way through, and I can't wait to see where it goes. In other news, Vampires of El Norte, I have like 70 pages left. I'm really hoping to finish it tonight, Friday, October 20th. We've just had like a confession, and the romance is so, I don't know, how do I describe this romance? Not dramatic. Dramatic's not the right word. Not melodramatic either, because it feels, the stakes do feel high. It's very cosmic, devoted. I don't know. It's just such a good romance. And now I'm gonna go let Vino in my room because he is yelling at the door. You probably can't hear him, but I can. It is Saturday, October 21st. We've got 1 week left in October, and I'm hoping to read, I think, 2 more vampire books for this vlog. We will see how that goes, but I finished Vampires of El Norte and I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. I think the historical fiction element, the setting was all very well done, and reading the back of the book, Isabel Cañas like studied history, so that makes sense why it's so well done. It feels so engrossing. I don't want to say real, but it has enough detail to give you the sense that they are in, 1840s Mexico, and the historical moment of like Texas and Texans versus Mexicans and Mexico, and it makes me want to learn more about the history of Mexico. And the vampires in Vampires of El Norte are more like creatures. They're kind of like bat-like. You know how a werewolf is described as like human-esque. Hi, Puff. Ow, 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 ow. These cats just treat me like a jungle gym. As I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, Puff. Yeah, I'm talking to you. What are you doing? She's crazy. And here we see the predator going after Vino. You're so rude, Puff. And Diva is just curled in the other chair sleeping. Oh. Look at. Okay, maybe she won't attack him. We're gonna be hopeful. Nope, she's going for him. So rude, Puff. And this is what it's like every day here. Werewolves, vampires. They're kind of described like bats in the way that their ears are and their faces are and snouts, but they're like human-sized. These vampires in this world are more beastly than man, and I think that's a really interesting take on vampires. It was great. The romance was, the word I was looking for earlier was like epic. It is an epic romance. They have this epic push and pull that, they are better together, essentially. And I think that holds true. It's such a good mix of gothic plus Western plus horror. Like, I want to read everything Isabel Cañas ever does. So 5 stars, loved it. Certain Dark Hunger, I am about 45% of the way into, and I also am loving this take on vampires. It's very much like Mexican vampires, descended from the Aztecs, or, having come from that era, versus European vampires, which are a little more traditional, like sun burns them, they drink blood, and they can survive off anyone's blood, whereas it seems like Athel, our Aztec version vampire, only can survive off of certain blood, and she can also drink tea and sugar, so she doesn't have to survive only on blood. It's very interesting world building because you do have several species of vampire, and they're all pretty different, and I'm sure that they're inspired by different vampire legends. But we have this woman who is on the police force, and the police force is garbage to women. So love to see a future where women are still seen as nothing. But she's kind of ignored on the police force, and she gets hooked up with this like secret, they're called like Deep Crimson. In the part I just read, Rosa and Deep, that might not be her name, I'm so sorry, they are making a deal. And so we've got vampire hunters. So Atul, our main character, with Domingo, our other main character, she is now being hunted by the European vampires and the vampire hunters. And so I think the stakes are getting higher. I'm kind of waiting for the midpoint change. I think maybe the midpoint change will be Domingo finding out some things about Atul that she's keeping from him. But we are getting like multiple points of view. They made another reference to Dracula and someone said like, oh, I'm no Van Helsing. It's so enjoyable to finally have that like base knowledge of vampires. I'm enjoying Certain Dark Things. And there's a foreword at the beginning where Silvia Moreno Garcia talks about how this actually came into reprint or got to be reprinted because it sort of gained a cult following. People online were recommending Certain Dark Things, and they were selling it on eBay for like $150. And it grew so much that when Tor, I think it's Tor Nightfire started, a horror imprint, they snapped up those rights. And I think especially since Mexican Gothic, because I think that is probably her biggest like breakout book. I think people like me have been going to her backlist and wanting these other books. Because we saw that, I mean, I just picked up Untamed Shore, which is a reprinting. Anyway, I then last night started Only One Coffin by A.J. Truman. This is a romance between two vampires. They are men, and basically they go to stay at this like hidden vampire hotel, think Hotel Transylvania, and accidentally get double booked in the same room, and that room only has one coffin and they have to share it. So it's there's only one bed. It's, I guess, chance meeting. We've got our two characters, Magnus and Kilroy, and Magnus has been a vampire for over 200 years, and he's old and sad, I guess, because he's been around for a long time. He had a partner and his partner died somehow. We learned that pretty early on, so it's not a spoiler, but we don't know how. And then Kilroy is like a brand new baby vampire. He's like 25, 26, and he became a vampire like 2 months ago. And so he's got all this like love of life still, and he's excited about being a vampire and being able to use his vampire powers and fly and like all of this stuff. And Kilroy was like a surfer dude, and 30 pages in, it's cute and funny. Now, what would be really interesting, I know we've got cozy paranormal mysteries or paranormal cozies with a lot of witches and ghosts. Are there paranormal cozies with vampires? Welcome back. We're at a different angle. We're in the kitchen. Vino is still here though, because he follows me around. It is Sunday, October 20. It's the 22nd, and I really should rake leaves today, but I'm not going to. I'll do it after work one day because I am not going to use my Sunday for that. But I did finish listening to Certain Dark Things yesterday by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Sir, what are you doing? Once again, the boy is here. He's always here, always following me. You'd think he'd let the other cats have some screen time, but no. Kind of marathoned. I read like the last 50% yesterday, and I really liked it. I think that it was playing with the vampire mythology in a really cool way, having different breeds. No, that's not the right word. Having different vampire mythologies come into play, having different species of vampire and all of their powers working differently and their abilities being different was really cool. And earlier I was calling her Rosa, her name is Anna, the like vampire hunter, and this like this imagined future Mexico City was like pretty cool. And I think that the way that future was built in the writing and in the world building was really smart. Our main human character, Domingo, was really interested in like comic books and superheroes and like vampire movies, and based on Silvia Moreno Garcia's introduction, I think that love of old vampire films came directly from her and like her history, and kind of was paying homage toward one of her favorite actors. I like the way the relationship between Adel and Domingo grew and was built. There was a lot of violence and a bit of blood and gore, because you have, you know, these super powerful vampires fighting, and a lot of blood drinking because it's vampires. So I can't like fault it for that. This is the genre, but at the same time, I'm not super into that. So my enjoyment wavered. There were a couple times where I was listening like, ugh. The main conflict between Adel's tribe and this other European tribe, I think there's a lot to discuss there about family history and colonization, and it was tied together into like drug cartels though a bit as well. So I don't really know, I don't have intelligent thoughts about that. Yeah? Oh, Diva's come to visit. Hi. Oh, look at this chunky baby. Say hi. She says, why are you holding me like this? This isn't normal. Yeah, this is normal. What? What? Oh, you don't want to be held? I kind of feel like the book wasn't as tightly plotted as I would have liked. There were a couple times where I was like, you know, why are we doing this? Like, she's sending Domingo on errands, and then they were kind of just going like place to place to place in a way that at times felt not chaotic necessarily, but unfocused maybe. So I did end up giving it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good, interesting take on vampires, but I feel like the plot for me was lacking a little structure, and the ending was, I want to say it was not surprising, because when you have these two stubborn vampires facing off, the story can only go so long before they have a collision and a final climactic battle. I just didn't love the way it ended. If you have read other Silvia Moreno Garcia books, you may start to see a pattern in her endings, and after a while, they become unsatisfying. I don't like ambiguous endings, and I don't think that this ending would be considered ambiguous, but it does leave the world open for more things to happen. And not that I ever think she's gonna write a sequel to this. I don't think that that's the case. I think I said that I started Only One Coffin, and where I'm at, page 62, we've had a cute moment where they like went out to a bar, not together on purpose, but like Kilroy was gonna go do something, and then Magnus was just like kind of worrying about him because he's a new vampire, and he went to check on him, and then they end up getting drinks and kind of sharing a bit about their history and what they like. I'm having a fun time. It's a cute romance. So I made a list the other day of all of the spooky books that I would like to still get to this season, because I just feel like I haven't been getting to read a lot. The 2 books that I still want to read for this vlog are Dowry of Blood, because I read Dracula. I might as well read this like retelling, and Lost Girls. I kind of want to read Enchanted to Meet You still, not for this vlog, but just in general. Vampires Read read it, and I want to know her thoughts, and I want to read it. I want to read Heartbreak and Magic. I don't remember the unfortunate side effects of Heartbreak and Magic or whatever that is, because it's a new release. It's been compared to Gilmore Girls. I think it's gonna give very Secret Society of Irregular Witches vibes with the cozy and the fantasy. I want to read This Spells Disaster again because Vampire Reads read it and she DNF'd it, and I will link her mid-October like catch up below, because I am now so surprised and I want to read that even more. I need to read Goldstruck Island. That's my Frances Harding for this season, and I have to read it, but my Frances Harding reads have oozed into November before, so I'm not mad if I finish that in November. She is a Haunting. It's a brand new release. I bought it in hardcover. I need to read it. I need to read it this year. I'd like to read Not the Witch You Wed, but again, it's kind of a romance, so that could trickle into November. I'll update you later, probably, when I finish this. It's Sunday evening, and I did not read as much as I wanted. Who's surprised? Not me. Kind of mad about it. I'm thinking of doing a challenge where I try to replace all of my Instagram screen time with reading, because I feel like Instagram is my biggest weakness. It is my time suck. But I had to pause for a second and update you because we finally got to the sex scene in Only One Coffin, and like this is like erotic romance. Like this is smut. This is like I know what I'm getting into, right? But the line, vampires are rigorous fornicators. Okay. And then his wicked smile sent a fresh surge of juice to my loins. What kind of juice? What? There's something difficult about writing vampire sex scenes because, like, they don't have their own blood. You know, I was here for it, and then I read those couple lines and I was like, ooh. However, I did just see the line, "Can we have sex on the ceiling?" And as a Spider-Man fan, I have had that thought before about the Spider-Man sticking ability. So, you know, it's doing something right. Wait. This vampire vlog just took a turn to the left. Apparently, in this universe, vampires are self-lubricating. What? You're dead. What are you lubricating with? I'm so confused. I'm like tearing up. It's so funny. What's happening? Like, this book was decent. Once again, I want to emphasize, I knew what I was getting into when I bought this. It's a male romance. This is erotica. Boy, oh boy. I did not realize we were going here to this level of world building. Like, just instead of just going in dry and hand waving it, they're like, no, they're vampires. What? Okay, I gotta finish this scene because I'm dying. I stayed up. I finished Only One Coffin. The ending was really sweet. It's definitely just a short, cute romance. The stakes did get a little, like, high. There's definitely danger in this world, so the world building was like a little off. It was good enough to accomplish what it needed to, right? There are slayers in this universe, there's danger in this universe. It was also a little sad. Humans will automatically want to kill vampires no matter what. And I know it's kind of a stupid comparison, but the world building was a little bit like Hotel Transylvania, where like they don't trust humans can't be relied upon, they're not good. And instead of having like a happy ending where the humans kind of prove that they have changed and that they don't hate vampires anymore, this book doesn't have that. It was cute, it was fun, it was a little funny, but overall I think I will probably give it, the books I've read in this vlog are all different genres, different authors, they're trying to accomplish different things, and I think this was good. It was fun. It, like, the sex scene made me giggle, but I'm not gonna give it like 2 stars or whatever because vampires are self-lubricating in this world. Like, no. So I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars. 2 things. 1, I started The Lost Girls by Sonia Hart. I'm roughly 30 pages in. I'm on chapter 5, and I don't know how to feel about it yet. The first, like, it started really quick. Like, our main character is 16, but she was turned into a vampire in the 80s by this guy, and in this world building we learn that vampires are kind of tied to their maker, so even though she's not with him anymore, she kind of has to follow him around and be within a certain distance of him. So also didn't realize this takes place in Michigan. That's exciting. And then, so like, she works at Taco Bell, we start there, and then like that very evening she meets the other 2 girls who he turned. They come looking for her. she trusts them pretty quickly. Like, they've already suggested, hey, we need to kill him so that we can be free. While I do like that premise, I think I just don't know how to feel about it yet because it's moving so fast and the characterization hasn't gotten deep enough yet. Ida seems like she's just kind of snarky and mean. Rose is quirky but make it a vampire. And our main character, Holly, is just kind of sad. Also, I watched like the first 10 minutes of First Kill. I just like don't have the time or attention span because it's like 11:30 at night to watch the whole series, but I think I'll watch at least the first episode. And the first 10 minutes were interesting, but I've sort of figured out that I don't like vampires that can come out during the day. I think that it is a cop-out. First Kill, the vampires can be out during the day. The Lost Girls, vampires can be out during the day. A Certain Hunger, vampires could be out during the day, but it like took a lot of energy from them. So that's why A Certain Hunger was like kind of skirted the line, but it was okay because there were consequences and not all vampires could go out in the sun. It depended on the species. But like something like Twilight, right? They can go out in the sun, but they can't like live a normal life. Something about being in sunlight prevents them from having that normal life, right? They sparkle, so they can't be out in sunlight in public because they'll draw attention. That is an interesting take, or at least it was in 2005. In this, these girls just walked into a high school and like sat down and pretended to be in the class. Like, first of all, that would never happen now. Security at high schools is too tight. A teacher would sit down and do attendance and be like, who the heck are you? Okay, so the premise of this, the beginning of this says like Holly has been stuck with crimped hair since 1987 and being young forever means working graveyard shifts at Taco Bell. First of all, why is she working the graveyard shift if she doesn't have to? Like, if she can be out during the day, why is she working the graveyard shift? She could work an 8 to 5. Like, it just like doesn't hang together. Like, if she can be out during the day, why doesn't she just get a different job? Or like that's what I'm struggling with in this beginning part of the book. The world building is not quite up to snuff so far, and the characterization also is not enough to pull me in. It's Monday, October 23rd. Friday is Taylor Swift's 1989, and I can't wait. I'm so excited, but this book is not exciting me. It is Thursday, October 26th, and Taylor Swift, like, you know, 1989 Taylor's version comes out tonight at midnight. I'm staying up. I'm gonna listen to the vault tracks, and then I'm gonna go to bed, because ain't nobody got time to stay up and listen to a whole album. That's not what you came here for. Let's talk about The Lost Girls. I am 116 pages in, and like something like we've hit a turn. Something big has just happened, and I don't really know where it's gonna go. I'm not loving it. I think the characters are underdeveloped, all of them. It's not hitting the way that I wanted it to. If I had to rate it right now halfway through, it would just be like a solid 3-star. It really depends on what happens in the rest of it. I think that we are going to get maybe a female-female romance. It is really sad as well. Like, it is, I think, tackling the idea of being 16 forever in a interesting way, because a lot of, you know, like Twilight and such really glamorize it, and you see the Cullens who are young forever, but like Edward at 17 wouldn't look like that, and they have driver's licenses and the money and power to get that documentation, whereas our character in this, Holly, she doesn't have that money, that power, I almost wanted this to be more slice of life, but there's, you know, they're trying to kill their maker, and that leads to kind of a bloody plot. This is one of the reasons that I don't really often DNF books, because something like The Last House on Needless Street, if I had DNF'd that, I would have missed out. I would have been so upset. I started A Dowry of Blood. I'm listening to it on audio, and I'm already like halfway through. It is flying by. These are written as letters to Dracula, though his name is never said, because our main character Constanza, yeah, is taking back her power, taking back her voice, and telling about her life with him. Because in the original Dracula, which I know this now because I read it, in the original Dracula, we have 3 women who are called the Wives of Dracula, and Jonathan sees them very briefly, just like 1 or 2 scenes, and Dracula is kind of cruel to them. And that's it. That's all that they are in it. And then Dracula is going after Mina and Lucy, which are 2 women. So he really is only shown to prey on women and try to make women vampires. In this book, the bisexual vibes are vibin', and we've just met the second wife, Magdalena, and that was some interesting writing. I just feel like I haven't read a really well-written but also sexy, but also dark sexy book in a while. Right now, Dowry of Blood, halfway through, sitting at a 5-star, Lost Girls, 3-star. So it's Thursday. I can't wait until tomorrow. It's Friday. I think I want to watch Interview with a Vampire. I need to get a strawberry milkshake and then watch Interview with the Vampire, because when I worked at McDonald's when I was 16, every Tuesday after my shift, I'd get a free strawberry milkshake, and I'd go home and I'd watch Interview with the Vampire every week for like 2 months. So I want to recreate that joy, that experience. So we are getting toward the end of this vlog. I finished A Dowry of Blood last night by S.T. Gibson. I think I only checked in like once with you at the midpoint and then now at the end. And it is fantastic. What a fantastic book. It's so brilliant. And I do love that it's so barely Dracula. Like, it is Dracula, and you know it's Dracula if you've read the original text, because there's like a one-off line about the Harkers. Enough is there for us to know it's Dracula, but also supposedly he survives that attack and then goes on to have this life. And I just loved the whole narrative of her falling in love with him, but actually it was so toxic because he was controlling and he controlled her, and they slept with other people, but then he brought other people into their relationship. And it was so amazing to see this character Constanza like find other people that she loved and who loved her for the right reasons, but then it's kind of bittersweet at the end, and it's written so well. It's so beautifully written. Like, I just feel like if this had been fan fiction, like actually online fan fiction, I would have lost my damn mind over it. There's something about a published book that doesn't hit the same. I loved A Dowry of Blood. I think I'm going to give it 5 stars. Diva. Ooh, so angry. I'm so glad I read the original Dracula before reading this. Like, no, ma'am. Say hi. Hi. Yeah, that's you. She's like, what's happening? She is where my phone was, so RIP. Guess we're gonna film at this angle, huh, Diva? No? Okay. This is her show now. I get why it blew up. I get why people, like, I'm pretty sure the author self-published this and then it got picked up by a publisher and reissued. So, like, props to her. And, well, I assume it's a her. Props to S.T. Gibson. And then they're coming out with a new book about Carmilla the other, like the original vampire before Dracula, or maybe around the same time. And that's another thing. The audiobook was really good. I listened to this on audio, The Lost Girls. This is a dense book. I don't know why it's taking me so long. And I've been reading like a decent amount each day, like a half an hour's worth of reading, and I still got like 80 pages left. I think the characterization has gotten a little bit better. We've introduced some of Rose, Ida, and Holly's pasts and their backgrounds, and that has given us a little more depth, a little more emotion. Something about it just is not working for me, and I think partially it might be the world building, because I said it earlier, I don't like when vampires can just like walk in the light. They can walk during the day, they can go out in the sun with no explanation as to why or how. Because if you look at vampire lore, okay, going back to Dracula, they can't go out in the sun. They go into this like paralyzed state during the day. Like Dracula literally could not move, could not do anything during the day. And that's how they were able to kill him. Anne Rice's vampires, similar thing. They go into kind of a paralyzed state during the day. They can't go in the sunlight, especially when they're young. As they get older, they get more powerful, they get more resilient. So we see in book 6, I guess it might be at the end of book 5, Armand, who is an ancient vampire, he steps into the light in like 1990 something, and he gets terribly burned, but does not die because he's so old and powerful. But we know that the first person Lestat changed, or one of the first people, Nikki, goes into the sunlight and dies because he was so young. Okay, so we've got precedent there. Coming forward to Twilight, they can go in the sun, but it shows how like wrong they are. They like literally sparkle, like shine bright like a diamond vampires. And people made fun of that, but the world building was there. They were constrained by where they could live, because you can't live in a bright sunny place that's bright and sunny all the time. And they were constrained on sunny days, like they could not go out in public. So like, I guess what I don't like is when vampires don't have constraints on them, because at that point, like, they're a supernatural creature. Like, just make something new up. They're not a vampire anymore if they can go out in the daylight with no world building behind it. With Lost Girls, they can just go out in the sun. That's not like a thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect them. Like, people still think they're wrong and weird and are uncomfortable around them. And like, Diva, please, ma'am, babe. Oh my god. You interrupted my rant about vampires. You got crazy eyes, girl. That's my rant on vampires. And all of this is to say, I am halfway through the first episode of First Kill, and it's really bothering me that we're not getting this world explained to us. I really don't. Okay, here, you can't use vampires and be like, these are vampires, and when you do that, you have all the cultural associations and connotations that come along with vampires. So there are established vampire rules. And if you're going to break them, you need to build that world and tell me why and how you can break them. Okay? And that's one of the things I had beef with about Twilight back in the day, because Bella getting pregnant in book 4, which, like, spoiler alert, I guess, but the movies have been out and everyone knows. So Bella getting pregnant in book 4 made me so mad, because we had already established in book 3 that vampires can't procreate. That was Rosalie's whole thing. But because Bella was a human at the time, I was just like, he's dead. He's dead. His little swimmers are dead. So that made me really mad, and I'm not over it. I'm not over it. And so when you have a vampire world, like in First Kill, where these 2 adults, who I assume are both vampires, we haven't really been told, but we kind of have, they're both vampires, they have 2 children. How did they do this? What is the world building here? Because just make up a new supernatural creature. Don't call them vampire. It's started to become a pet peeve, because I've read so many vampire books, and some do it really well and explain all the things, and some do not. And if they don't, I don't like it. There are a few things that are a requirement to be considered a vampire. And to me, one of them is the constraints of not being able to go out in the day. And you know what? That's the other thing about the Lost Girls that it's kind of in the marketing, because at the back it says like her boyfriend turned her into a vampire, he ditches her at a gas station, and she realizes that being young forever actually means working graveyard shifts at Taco Bell. So that implies that the only job she can get is working overnight at Taco Bell because she can't go out during the day. But she could work a day shift at Taco Bell. Like, she can go out during the day. There's no reason for the only job for her to be able to get is to work the night shift at Taco Bell. She could actually work at Target, or like she could fudge her age up to 17 or 18 and then get a job anywhere else. Just make up a new supernatural creature. Call them an immortal, an eternal. Like, that's one of the things that Danielle Clayton, in her short story in the Vampires Never Get Old, they were technically not vampires. They were called like eternal women, and they had a little different world building, and they were not, like, the world building in that was very interesting, and they were not vampires. They were a new type of immortal creature. And that is important. That makes a difference to me. Because, like, how fascinating. If I got turned into a vampire tonight, right? I wouldn't be able to go to my job during the day. I wouldn't be able to, like, see my family during the day. You are so constricted by the sun and the moon. And that is one of the fascinating things about reading maybe like a slice of life story about a vampire, is how that happens, how that works, how you can continue to survive and live in the darkness. Like, that's the whole thing. It also, the first kill, the music is too much. The music in that show, like, every scene has a new, like, poppy, upbeat song, or like, you know, some techno, whatever. It's just, the music is too much. They need to chill. I don't know if I've talked about like the actual plot of this. And in the world building here, you are like tied to your maker. You have to go where they go. So all three of these girls are stuck trailing him around wherever his whims take him, and they kind of can't leave. So they're trying to kill him, and in order to do so, they have to find this specific thing in the lore that like holds their living memories, and then they have to sacrifice them, a part of themselves, basically, in order to kill him. There's some sort of a ritual that needs to be done, which we haven't really gotten explained very well what that ritual is. And so it takes on almost like a quest, like a traditional quest story, with Elton, the bad boyfriend vampire, trying to stop them, and also the girl that he is courting currently and going to turn. She and Holly start to like each other and become friends. It is sapphic. There is a sapphic romance in here. One of the bad vampires got a job at a bank briefly to be there during the day. And it's like, okay, so there's no reason our main character specifically has to work midnights at Taco Bell. Cats be cray. Just wanted to check in because I just read a little bit more and was like,
I did not finish The Lost Girls last night, RIP, but I'm gonna finish it today. I've got like 60 pages left. I'm gonna watch Interview with the Vampire tonight. That's my reward, but I need to rake some leaves because I have a lot of big trees in my yard, and it was warm for like 2 days, and so they all dropped their leaves now that it's chilly again. So much. And Halloween is 2 days away. It's Sunday, so I want these leaves cleared up so people can like come through, you know, the yard and walk on the sidewalk and not be crunching. So you'll get some before footage and then some after footage, because I need that. I need the will to keep going because it's a lot of leaves. Last year, I raked about 60 to 70 bags worth of leaves. Also, yes, we do have to bag them in my neighborhood, and I hate that. Good luck to me. Ready to blow some leaves. Let's go. I'm calling it a day because I just filled 10 bags with leaves. Now I'm tired and my hand is very dirty from touching wet sticks because it rained yesterday. But I had to get some of it done today because it's just going to get worse. And that's just the front yard. Got to do the backyard later. I'm going to go in and eat some food and shower. And then I'm going to edit this vlog. So fun. I'll update you when I finish The Lost Girls with my final thoughts on everything.
Final wrap up, final thoughts. I wore this to work today for Halloween. It's actually the day before Halloween, but our company celebrated it today. It's really funny because I unironically just owned these things. This is like a leather peplum thing. I just unironically owned these, not planning to make them part of a costume. Final thoughts on the vampire vlog. I read Dracula, which it was such a pleasure to read the original text. I gave that 5 stars. The atmosphere was fantastic. The plot was fun. The characters were well built and well written. And I listened to the audiobook, and so like the different accents were just perfect. I loved it. And it's crazy to me that I was technically like not spoiled for the plot of Dracula over, 100 years. I read Vampires Never Get Old, Tales with Fresh Bite by Zoraida Cordova and Natalie C. Parker, or at least edited by them. And this is a book of short stories. And I actually forgot to talk about one I thought I had, but I didn't. And that is called In Kind by Kayla Whaley. It kind of takes on who should live, who should die, and like disability and vampires with disability. Like being a vampire, does that mean that you automatically like are healed from your disability or not? So it was really good, really interesting. I loved the way it's written. It's kind of bookended by news articles. I gave this 5 stars. It says something important and makes you confront your own bias. It was just really interesting and good. And I realized while editing the beginning part of this video yesterday, I didn't talk about it. So overall, I gave this collection 4 stars. I really, really liked it. There were just a couple stories that brought it down for me. And then I read Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas and gave this 5 stars. This is definitely more in the romance category. It is like a paranormal gothic romance, and the vampires in this are not your typical living, feeling, thinking vampires, but they're dead, like undead. These are more creature vampires, but I think the writing in this is gorgeous. I think the historical setting is very interesting, and I think the romance is phenomenal. I read Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I loved the world building in this with the different species of vampires and their different abilities, and I think it was very cinematic. I could see this as a really great dark noir film, but with vampires. And the final like confrontation, some of the action in this is really good. If you like vampire action, it bordered on a little too much for me gore wise, but bordered. And that's my sweet spot for vampire stories, right? Where it borders on too much violence and gore, but it doesn't quite go over that line for me. And this just solidifies my love of Silvia Moreno Garcia. And I gave it 4 stars. I read Only One Coffin by A.J. Truman. This is a romance. And the romance, it kind of worked. I was here for it. They were cute. They were perky. I didn't love the world building. It's a very sad kind of world building. But I did like the ending. And the sex scenes made me giggle, which, it's not the worst thing I've ever read. I think I gave this 3 stars. And then I read A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and this was phenomenal. Another 5-star read. I think that the writing was gorgeous. I think the relationships were toxic and interesting and well developed. I kind of listened to this audiobook in a marathon across like 2 days, and I can see myself rereading this. And finally, I read The Lost Girls by Sonia Hartle, and final thoughts on this, because I literally finished it 10 minutes ago before I started filming. I didn't care for the ending. I think the very, very ending was good. I didn't care for the kind of climax of the book. It was a little too violent for me. This book really went there with the violence and the gore and the vampires because, like, Ida likes to create projects out of dead body parts. So like she made like a brain-o-lantern and she like carved a brain and put a candle in it, and she made like the leg lamp from A Christmas Story but like with a human leg, and that was just a little too much for me. I think the line with violence and vampires for me is when the story sort of glories in the violence and finds it funny or makes it comical. I really don't like violence as comedy. And I think this had a little bit too much of that for my taste. With other vampires, the violence is the horror. Also, the expectations for this just were not met because I've talked about it, I've ranted about it, but vampires being able to go in sunlight is a no-no for me. That is like my hard stop. If they can go in sunlight, it's too easy. Everything's too easy. I think my final rating for this is going to be 3 stars. Kind of a bummer to end on like one of the lower rated books, but overall what I've discovered is that I have very strong opinions about vampires, and I am just an Interview with a Vampire stan. I watched it last night and it is the best vampire movie I have ever seen and will ever see. Real quick, I'm gonna use this for a moment to talk about Interview with the Vampire, the TV show, versus the movie, because the TV show does a lot of interesting things. They have a Black Louis vampire. They have that tension between like slave owning and land owning, and like it is doing really great things in terms of updating the text to be more modern. However, they lost me like 4, 5 or 6 episodes in. Like we were toward the end of the season, and I'm gonna put spoilers on the screen. So Claudia is aged up, which I understand why they did that. Good, okay. But she is a vampire. She is scary. She is a killer. She is ruthless and heartless. She is, like Lestat, not afraid to murder. She is Lestat's true heir, really. And they make her like run away. She goes off on her own. Great. Love that choice. Love that option. They make her go to a college briefly, and she meets another vampire, which, first of all, absolutely not. Louis and Claudia are supposed to think they are the only vampires for a very long time, so did not like that. Secondly, guess what this vampire does? Guess what this older vampire does to her? Yeah. If you're thinking historical fiction texts, if you're thinking the classic woman gets raped, you'd be right. They made the all-powerful, scary, badass Claudia get raped by another vampire. Like, what is the point of a woman becoming a vampire and becoming powerful if you can still get assaulted like that? Like, why did you add that to the narrative? That does not happen in the original text. Thank you very much. And that is the one update that I think they totally messed up. Why would you do that? Why? I don't understand. So that made me really mad. I think it would have been more interesting if she tried to turn someone into a vampire as a companion for her and discovered she couldn't because she's too small. She's too young. She doesn't have enough blood to refill a full-grown human. Like that kind of having to be alone or having to choose Louis and Lestat. Those were her 2 options. And that could have sent her back to Louis and Lestat to like, okay, well then I need to stick with them and I need my Louis. The movie is so, Louis is a psycho. He is a freaking arsonist, absolute pyromaniac. Like he just always wants to set things on fire. He sets 3 fires during this movie. And the moment when he turns Madeline, he is literally giving up a part of himself to like give to Claudia, basically, to give her a companion. I don't even like Louis that much, but like, and then Armand, okay, I really need to connect with someone who's a big fan of Interview with the Vampire. Like, let me know, let's talk, because a lot of people like Armand, and I think Armand is a little bitch, and I hate him. I will never forgive him for what he did to Claudia. He absolutely had a part in putting her in that chamber and burning her to death. Like, absolutely. That was his idea so he could get Louis alone. They have that confrontation where he's like, you need to send her away. You need to send Claudia away. And Louis is like, if she goes, I go too. And Armand is like, okay. And he doesn't just accept that. No, he went and told his vampire bros to, all right, we got to kill this little girl. And in the books, we know Lestat made it there in time to talk to Armand. And Armand is like, did she do this to you? Did she try to kill you? And Lestat is like, no, I mean, yeah, but she didn't succeed. So obviously she didn't break any rules. And Armand is like, no, she tried to kill you. Done. And it is all a ploy to hurt Lestat and pay him back for back in the day, and to get Louis on his own. So like, Armand is the worst. And the fact that in Prince Lestat, Louis and Armand like end up together, hate it, absolutely hate it. So Louis can forgive Armand for killing Claudia, but Louis can't forgive Lestat for turning him, even though he chose it technically. Like, make it make sense. Make it make sense, Louis. Anyway, that's my rant on Interview with the Vampire. I think the movie is fantastic, and I would only change it by making them kiss, you know? Like, and the show does that for me. So, perfection. And like, it straddles that line between like true horror, but also like gothic, like existential, like, just, I need to stop. Okay, so that's the vlog. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I don't know, leave a little vampire emoji. But if you did like this, you could click that like button, you could subscribe to me, but really, you can do whatever you want, and I'll see you next time.